This is my son's 1.8T Jetta, and as you can tell, we are in the midst of some rescue operations here. For those who have been following the channel for a while, my name is Brendan, aka Cliff Jumper. Long story behind that name, you can check out another video on that. But my son has a 20-year-old Jetta, and it is giving us some issues after another mechanic worked on it. So this is part 3 of the Jetta saga of fixing everything the other mechanic broke. Let's keep with it. Yeah, if you've been following along with the misadventures here, long story short, the timing belt let go, prematurely I might add, but it happens. And as you would expect with a 1.8T, all the valves kissed the pistons, and that made for major problems. So, out of the goodness of their heart, some folks at a neighbor church offered to pay to have their mechanic put a replacement motor in my son's car to help out our family, which is awesome. And yes, that has actually been a huge blessing, because otherwise the car wouldn't be working at all. It would still be sitting in the backyard waiting for me to get around to working on it. So I don't want to pretend like it's not like a really big deal. It was a really big deal, and we're super appreciative of that. Unfortunately, the mechanic who worked on it, I don't know if he was having a bad day or a bad week or what, but he missed a lot of detail working on this thing and did more damage than he fixed, if I'm being honest. So in the last few weeks, we have been replacing all sorts of hoses and electronic connectors and fixing leaks. There have been hose clamps that were not tightened. The turbo hose clamp wasn't tightened. I mean, just all over the place, all sorts of really sloppy attention to detail kind of work. So we barely got the car home. When we got it home, it dumped coolant all over the ground. And yeah, there's been more broken than was fixed. So I've been going through it. The car was actually driving okay for like a couple weeks. It still had a small coolant leak that we were trying to figure out, because every time I put the car under pressure with a pressure tester, I could not find the leak. I finally found it, and it turned out to be this connector right here that comes off of the side of the cylinder head. The O-ring around here, which, by the way, when we first discovered this problem, found out that the mechanic didn't put an O-ring there. He just put RTV silicone and gushed the sensor in place as if that would hold it. And of course, as soon as it got pressurized, it popped out and coolant went everywhere. So yeah, you have to have the O-ring, and you have to have a clip that holds that in place. Well, we quote unquote fixed that. I put in another O-ring and another clip, and then we discovered it was leaking out here. And I don't know if you can really tell, but like when I press on here, there's coolant that's coming out from underneath. This is because this hose clamp, they put it on in such a way that you can't actually tighten it. So this is not tightened at all. This hose is just sort of shoved on here. The hose clamp's not tightened. And of course, that's leaking. And then, but wait, there's more. We discovered that the whole flange itself was leaking. So I haven't finished taking it off yet. I've just been in the process of removing everything that we have to get access to be able to take that flange off, and we're going to put on a new flange and make sure that that's all sealed up nicely. While we're in there, we will reset the hose clamps. I'm going to get down inside here. I'm sorry about the camera angle, but down inside there are some more hose clamps on the heat exchanger. I strongly suspect that those were probably removed as part of the process of putting in the used motor. And we're just going to double check everything in here, all the connections, make sure that there's nothing leaking, because you can tell there's coolant all over the place here. This is all coolant that has come leaking out of the motor and spraying. And So to make matters more interesting for me, in the latest bout of dumping out coolant, I realized the radiator fans are not coming on at all. And that can be one of two major, two main things that usually go wrong with radiator fans on a 1.8 turbo. The first is these fuses here in this fuse box. They tend to get corrosion and get cruddy. And certainly I'm going through and cleaning up these connections, and I'm gonna make sure that everything is good and test them. Underneath the battery tray, underneath here, that is where the fan controller sits, and it sits upside down. So I've already replaced this once before, about 4 years ago, that had the fan controller go bad. They're only like 20 or 30 bucks. So we're gonna go ahead and put in a new fan controller underneath there. I may as well, since it's the while you're in there kind of thing. And that should bring our radiator fans back to life and make sure that this is all working. And of course, while we're going through here, I'm just gonna go through and see if there's anything else that we need to remove. So if you ever have to replace this connector, as you see, I've removed the battery, I've removed the battery tray, I've taken out the air box, so I've got plenty of access to get in here with the 10mm and undo the two 10mm bolts that hold this flange in place. Once I have this last bolt out, there's two of them and I've got the first one out already, I'll be able to angle this out and deal with this hose clamp here as we swap that coolant flange out. And we will just take a careful peek and see what else we can deal with while we are in there. And I've got some good access to underneath if there are any other hoses or connectors that need to be dealt with. So that's what we're up to right now. That's just the latest update with this adventure.
But wait, there's more.
Wait. But wait, there's more. I forgot. So of course, when this spat coolant all over the place, and it went all over the place, we had some misfires from cylinder 2 and 3. And that could be because all the coolant went spraying up right onto 2 and 3 here. So I'm gonna pull the, and you might notice too, these are also connectors that the other mechanic broke. Both of these connectors are lovely and broken. So the right timing now is to replace those broken connectors so they're working and we rule out those as issues. I'll probably also check the spark plugs because at this point I don't trust anything that he did in terms of this process. Did he put in new spark plugs? I don't know. Did he reuse the old ones from the old motor? I don't know. Did he use ones that came with the used motor? I don't know. So we're gonna pull the spark plugs, make sure it's got fresh, proper plugs in this motor as we go through and get my son's car back up and running. That is the plan. We'll see how it goes. No wonder it's not sealing. Look at that. O-ring is completely flat, deformed. Yeah, I can see some RTV silicone here, where once again they try to use that as their approach to solve this. Great job. Not. Looking at it, it's definitely warped and deformed, so it wasn't sealing on the head, and this is all messed up, so yeah. This whole thing, this is all loose. He didn't tighten any of this. Look at that. I can just wiggle this around. I have not loosened that yet. No wonder this thing is just squirting everywhere. What hack job level of work? Unbelievable. Just unbelievable. be careful who you have work on your cars, folks. Be careful. I mean, it's kind of my own fault for just going with the word of someone who, like, it's their mechanic and they like their mechanic. And I didn't check any Yelp reviews or anything first. I just went in blind and, you know, because they were gonna swap the motor for free. But man, it's costing me a lot in time, you know, in some parts. I'm glad I can do this work myself, but man, I'm just thinking of like the poor person that doesn't have any mechanical skill or experience and takes their car to a shop like this to have major work like a motor replaced, and then they come out and it's got all of these issues. I mean, we're so lucky that this motor just hasn't blown up on us with all of the stuff that's wrong with it. It's unbelievable, the sloppiness. I'm horrified at this. I can't even call it workmanship because it's just not. It's awful.
But wait, there's more.
Okay, now I see a little bit even more what he did. So I'm assuming that in the process of swapping this, either this hose that goes from the connector to the turbo was damaged, and he decided to replace it with a 90-degree universal that he just cut to fit, except that this end is the correct size. This end has to be necked down, and there's no way that a hose this big is going to seal on that, no matter what you do with a hose clamp. It's just the diameter's too different. I mean, it's completely different. So no wonder it was leaking like crazy back there. No matter what they did with it, it was not going to seal. So we're gonna have to get the proper hose to fit here before we can continue this repair. So that is gonna be where we leave it for today. We're gonna have to get another hose, the proper hose, and then we should be on our way towards success. So, sorry to say, but you're gonna have to tune in for part 4 to see if we are successful in getting her back up and running. And in that part, I will deal with the radiator fan controller. I'll do it in daylight so we can see where everything is. We'll check out all these connectors as well, just to make sure that they are properly working before we put all of this together. Thanks for tuning in. Hit like, subscribe, share, you know, all that good nonsense. Helps us out a lot. God bless. Bye. See you soon.
And on that terrible disappointment, it's time to say goodbye. We'll be back.